等先。好 ，Hello， 大家好，set 到機啦。
Because of the cases under the NSL heard by the specific judge, handpicked by the chief executive, and they are no jury. The 44/7 are facing a maximum of life sentence. The majority of the Hong Kong 44/7 were held in custody with over bail for over 700 days before their trial begins. Only a few were granted bail, but with harsher conditions such as limited freedom of speech. And why do we need to speak out? The first reason is the violation of human rights. Most of those arrested were denied bail and have been in custody for
Hello 大家，而家發言緊嘅亦都係831韓寶生，咁佢真名咧係叫 James 嘅，咁佢而家發緊言就講緊英文，就俾多啲外國嘅人知道香港而家發生緊咩事嘅。
Freedom of speech. This is undoubtedly a violation of fundamental human rights. Second, demand the trial is overseen by a free handpicked judge and does not have a jury, which is the practice of NSL case, creating a climate of fear and stifling free speech. For example, the definition of terms such as collusion with foreign or external forces and terrorism are unclear. Beijing has the power to interrupt the law, but not. Recently, the chief executive invited Beijing to interpret British barriers to bar British barriers from security law trials. This shows that NSL destroyed the entire integrated of Hong Kong's legal system to allow rule by dissent. And the last one is about the Sino-British Joint Declaration and Basic Law. The Sino-British Joint Declarations have assured that the way of living of Hong Kongers will remain unchanged for 50 years and it will have a high degree of autonomy. Nevertheless, the NSL drafted by the CCP intruded into Hong Kong, destroyed the original judicial system of Hong Kong, and deprived freedom of Hong Kongers. This has apparently gone against the Sino-British Joint Declaration. Article 26 of Basic Law safeguards the right to vote and stand for election for Hong Kong residents. Furthermore, Article 28 of the Basic Law protects Hong Kong residents from arbitrary or unlawful arrest, detention or imprisonment. The Hong Kong 44/7 were arrested because of standing of election and jail before the trial. This practice has apparently violated the Basic Law. And this is the reason why we stand in here and tell the story. And there is no limitation of the national security law of the China. And now I would like to invite our speakers, and because one of the reason why we've been here is sharing our
Hello, Shelly. Hello.
Production or exchange our ideas
Hello,
to
Joseph.
locals or to the,
Hello, Kapma.
the party offers, and so if anyone want to share your thought or ideas in here, you're welcome to be a speaker in here. So, and now I'm gonna to invite our speaker, Carmen. Carmen in here. Okay, thank you, Carmen. Carmen is a former.
呢一個就係前區議員，以前隔離區啊，係啦，劉家文。
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Carmen Lau, a former elected district councillor in Hong Kong. And as some of you may notice, I was actually a legislative assistant to one of the folks and a colleague of many of them. And I was fortunate enough to be close with some of them once. It was always painful for me to see the pictures demonstrated during protests at the speaker because it reminds me of the time we fought alongside each other for justice and democracy. And when we were all free. And that they were not just distant politicians representing their voters and supporters, but rather they were ordinary people just like you and I. They were sons and daughters, husbands and wives, and parents just like anyone else. Since the national security law was implemented, the Hong Kong government has been arresting individuals simply for exercising their basic rights. Many have been held for extended periods before their trials and are now facing indefinite detention, including these pro-democratic political prisoners. This is a clear message from the CCP that Hong Kong will never deserve a democratic progression or become a federal society. And that any dissident's voice will be silenced. Therefore, there have been no more protests, and that Hong Kong is back to normal, they said. But is it really? Is it really to their families and friends, and to all of their fellow travelers? This is the reason for us to be here today, to tell the world no.
Okay, and do we have the next speaker? So, okay, we like to have our guest.
嗱，而家喺鏡頭前邊呢個就係鄭文傑，英國港僑協會嘅。
Okay, by the way, thank you, Carmen. Thank you the sharing from Carmen. It's really encouragement. And now we would like to have our second speaker, who is the representative of Hong Kong A, Ivan. Thank you, Ivan.
Thank you, Chief. Hello, everyone. It's my privilege to be here with you today in opposing the Chinese Communist Party, its political suppression of the candidates running in Hong Kong 45+. As you may be aware that it's a mass arrest under the Hong Kong National Security Law in 2021. The fourth day of the marathon-style persecution
Excuse me.
were extremely inhuman.
Excuse me.
The marathon
Yeah.
I'm referring to is not the marathon that the Legislative Council declared support the Hong Kong National Security Law is now participating in London, which should not be welcome in any democratic country at all. As a result of those 4 days, of 35-hour-long pursuit, a number of candidates were deprived of their right to rest, and is expected and has to be taken to the hospital. The regime focused on suppress those 43 The regime focused on suppressing these 43 candidates because they have the popular mandate of the Hong Kongers through democratic election. It's a symbolic act of Hong Kong nation uniting for our freedom of our fatherland. No matter how much the CCP suppress it still cannot take away the crucial meaning of the popular mandate, which is not only a political persecution of those 43 individuals, but also an insult to the 610,000 Hong Kongers who participate in the vote. The unity of the people is often, and the CCP know this better than we do. And in experience the struggle of the past, the national consciousness of Hong Kongers has awakened like a Pandora box, and oppressed and against the dictatorship has become part of our DNA. When we have awakened the fact that I am Hong Kongers, there's no turning back. We must recapture Hong Kong's sovereignty by any means before the CCP remove Hong Kongers from the dictionary. People should not be unfair to the government. Government should be unfair to their people, because Hong Kongers are the master of this land. And we are lost the tour just by the Winnie the Pooh to consolidate his totalitarian regime. Since 2019, more than 10,000 protesters, including me, has been arrested. 1,000 of them has been imprisoned and deprived of their freedom, with the number of political prisoners even exceeding that of a tyrant state like Iran, and total sentence of 772 years. Can you imagine that? Today's demonstration proved that Hong Kongers are not away from the white terror, not only in London, but also in other cities in the UK, and even in Europe, the US, Canada, Australia, and other parts of the world. Our voices should be heard here, and this is the responsibility for the British government to hear what we are saying, and his responsibility to ensure that the Sino-British Joint Diplomatic Contract is adhered to. From the Manchester incident last year, the spy balloon in the US, and the CCP secret police station worldwide can be concluded that China is a visible threat to the freedom we have. So please do what you're good at to make the world aware of the human rights issue in Hong Kong, like precisely what all you did today. Thank you.
過埋香港
時代革命
，Free Hong Kong。
，Free Hong Kong。
Thank you, Ivan. Thanks the sharing from Ivan. So we have our first speaker, Simon. Simon is co-founder of the Hong Konger in Britain, and now he have his sharing to address us. Thank you, Simon.
下一位發言就係謝明傑啦。
Thank you. Thank you all the volunteers to organize this protest and rally. And we should be really grateful and glad that we still see many people that still stand here to show the voice of the people. We can't shy away from the injustice back in the hometown. Hong Kong shares a historical linkage with Britain. The UK has ultimate historical commitment to the freedom of Hong Kong people. All around the world witness the fall of the freedom back in Hong Kong. So that's why it's important to show international community to stand for the seven value. We can't let those people down. We can't let those people being innocent now imprisoned, in cell, just because what they said, just because what the flag they waved, just because what the song they sung, just because what the leaflets they spread, just because what the faith they hold. It's inhumane. When we see the Hong Kong official visit London, try to enhance the economic cooperation, we try to run the business as usual and pretend nothing happened, but the blood had been shed, sacrifice had been made. Many people, they stand against the establishment just because they want to have a fair society, democratic society, have a decent right to vote, have a decent say, to stand against the dictators who are holding the power, and many lackey dogs kneeling down to the power, getting benefit, getting title, getting many of those, they're now becoming rich. And that's so-called the China model. And our Hong Kong as a city to help to showcase what kind of the so-called authoritarian value of China to the world. We can't let Hong Kong fall becoming a showcase to the authoritarian regimes to the world. So that's why we stand here. We share the values with liberal democracies. We understand so many flaws, but at least we recognize the flaws of democracy. We could criticize the government. We could criticize the officials who hold power, because we as a people who hold the government of those dignitaries hold the power to account. And that's so important because we recognize we are not perfect. So that's why we recognize our imperfect and make improvement. But back in Hong Kong, only one way we can do, we cannot instigate hatred to the government. We cannot criticize the police officers who abuse their power over people. If we do, we're now in prison. Even many of us now being in exile, one of the populous countries would be in the UK. Many of us are with fear because we worry about our own safety. We don't know who
有啊，個
we
超過
grasp
100人
onto
啊，
the
有超過
police,
100人啊。
who will spread the information, who join the protest, who participate in the rally, who criticize the government to the police officers. We don't know. We feel disappointed. We feel furious about the police officers. What the people expect, the Hong Kong police officers should serve the people. But instead, they serve the private interests of dictators now living in Beijing. Those people, they have been selected not with the mandate of people. If you say you just care about your own lives, you also should care about you are the human with dignity. The world is not perfect. We're now facing lots of challenges. Authoritarian regimes from Russia, from China, that's going to be more assertive, more aggressive. They wage war in East Europe. Then they threatened the peace in Asia. We need to stand together with other liberal democracies. We can foresee if we step back, the war will happen to Taiwanese people that we have similar culture, but we care. The Taiwanese people, they should be with peace. They should enjoy their freedom to criticize their own government. We remember how hard they achieved democracy, how many people they died for democracy. We remember those people in South Korea, how they fight hardly for the justice, for democracy now we have seen today. And this is history. If we believe the people should progress toward a more just, fair society, we should stand together. The history is not the end. The history is repeating. When we see decades ago, many people, students, teachers, farmers, workers, they wanted to have their own rights. They have been persecuted by military government. Many bloods, many people they shed. And the trauma is now being impacted generation by generation in many kind of the countries. And now the trauma is commonly shared with Hong Kong people. No matter now they are in prison, no matter now they cannot leave from their hometown, and maybe many of those now in exiles we're living in as a diaspora. We consolidate our voice as identity of Hong Kongers. That is very important why we are now in central London, just next to the Parliament, because we want to share our desperate voices to the British locals and tourists. When the people they visit here, when the people they come for work, when the people they want to get on their own better life. But we still remember many people that are now living in trauma, living in fear, that we cannot shy away. And that's why we need to protect the Britain. Many historical figures in exiles, they progress. They achieved a better society. Maybe not now today, but maybe 100 years later, maybe decades later. When we see what we have done in here, we stand against establishment. We stand against the trend. We stand against the resources. We stand against the power. But only one thing we have is the faith. The faith for humanity. The faith for people. Because we focus not just about the city. If we think that it's just about the city could inhumanize. The city could dehumanize the people. That was the mindset of the Beijing dictatorship. The most important thing is the national sovereignty, it's stability, it's the system, it's the regime, it's their own personal benefit. But no, we focus on people. We focus on who living in the city, sharing with the same value. Even now we are not living in Hong Kong. We focus on Hong Kongers. We focus on people. That's why we would not let any individual left behind. Even one person, even one day. They're now in prison just for what they thought. That is intolerable. We will still stand here to speak for them until they are all being released. We could be threatened. We could feel fear. But if we are with this fear, the UK will be with no freedom. Because we seek refuge in here, we seek freedom in here, we stand here one. We can unveil our mask. We could witness with each other who you are, because we could be brave to say, we are here stand for freedom. We are here cannot put up with the government, persecute our people. But we are fear. We could understand that we are fear. Because the national security law has been newly imposed back in our hometown to claim they could rule the world. They could be with lots of informants even in London. They could track our activity. They could recognize our face. Even you are British citizens. Even you are humans living in the UK, passing by here, you could be monitored. That is a fear. If we are with fear, this suppressive law is effectively exists in here in the UK. So the most important thing that we should do, we should be brave. We should stand together outside and here. We should exhaust all opportunities to tell to the people, Chinese government suppressing over the people, sending political dissidents, human rights lawyers, pro-democracy activists in jail. We would not forget. We would not kneel down. The City of London just over there. Many investment banks cooperating with autocratic regimes. Many professionals, many civil servants to try to leave a back door to cooperate with the dictatorship. We need to remember, we need to take the lesson from history. The Hong Kong officials for finance come here to visit. They visit the Guildhall. They visit the City of London. Many protesters try to stop that. Try to tell the British diplomats, try to tell the British officials not to receive the officials representing the dictatorship. They're trying to come here, spreading out the free air ticket, ask British people to visit back to Hong Kong, ask the foreign professionals to visit back to Hong Kong. They say, let's move on. There's nothing happens. Now it's back to stability. Hong Kong is Hong Kong, still economic city, still vibrant. When you see the city line, the skyline, still very beautiful. But how about the people? How about those people now maybe cannot share with you living in a high skyscraper, enjoying your own private office? They're now in prison. They're now in personal cell. They're now being isolated. They're now being in darkness. Just because they want to have a fair society. Just because they share different value and opinion with those so-called high-class dignitaries and officials. No. In the UK, we talk about class because we have history. But the UK is also the first time ever constitutional democracy. We are mixed. But we believe the history maybe sometimes is gradual and slow, but still progressive. We believe even the House of Lords, because they're not democratically elected, they could have some say, but they don't have the final say. Because the people's mandate laid on the House of Commons. Even the British monarchy need to respect the British people. That's why Hong Kong, we focus on our own people. If we say we want to achieve better democracy, we wanted to get more votes. Some people said, you need to talk with Beijing. You need to talk to those people living in Zhongnanhai in Beijing. But why? The people is the main and only actors in society. Xi Jinping is just a human being. But he might be different with you because he owns more power than you. He could decide who was sent to jail, but not you. But why the powers would be laid upon the Chinese Communist Party? Because 100 years ago, a bunch of revolutionary figures tried to achieve better society. But those bunch of people with idealism, but corrupted, but fall because they own power. 100 years later, the people voice out again. And this so-called Communist Party, Chinese Communist Party, if they've been abusing their own power over people, one thing must happen. This regime will be buried by the people themselves. That's not one-off incident. That's not the end. If we step back from the fall of the freedom in Hong Kong, we already see they would not step back. They will step forward. We will see the imbalance of power in Asia. We will see now the belligerent militarily to the Taiwanese democracy. We will see the more aggressive to South China Sea. We need to stand with our allies of liberal democracies together. We need to rebuild the checks and balance, because Hong Kong, for many, many years, we tried to showcase to the world we could coexist with China, because China is going to be reformed, because China is going to be open, because China is going to be more free. As people get richer, they could have more chance to visit the UK. But sorry, what you have seen, so many corrupted officials with their principally children owning the privilege and power, visits the UK, settle downs in the UK, moving the assets to here. They are abusing the economic benefit from people in China and in Hong Kong, through Hong Kong, to get the benefits in the West, in the UK. We are being fooled. We are being cheated. What we are now fighting for is need to stop this aggression. We need to tell to the world, we need to tell to the City of London, if you're lawyers, if you're businessmen, we need to stand for our basic professionalism and principle. If you're lawyers, you need to remember, you serve the people, you share the social responsibility. If you're a businessman, you can't kneel down just because for your own interest of business. You need to stand with all those people. That is very, very, very important. We will place our pressures on the international community. We are British nationals. Thence we stand here. We request our parliamentarians to keep voice out for the freedom of Hong Kong, and even the freedoms of those Chinese people and many others. Also, really wanted to let you know, those people that cannot wait, those people now want day after one day, they're aging, they're failing, they're hungry, they're human life. We don't even know how they are. We don't even know how they live. They are the human life. We need to rescue them. If the government try to pretend nothing happened, try to be civilized, act civilized, but they close and shut down the door, having a domestic abuse, beating up people, threatening the people. We cannot just see the facade. We cannot just see they wear in a best suit. We cannot just see, oh, they're the officials. How about those people behind the door that the officials shut down? You never ever could see. We still have a limited access to information, so we know what's going on in Hong Kong. But how about after 5 years? The Great Firewall on the internet closed all the access of information, try to fool the people, try to control the information, try to dish out lots of resources to propaganda department, to let you believe China model is good. The mass infrastructure is developing so fastly. The UK is failing. Racism is everywhere. Why Hong Kong people moved to the UK? Just being racially abused by the white people. They try to sow the division amongst the UK society. They try to exhaust all the resources of propaganda. They try to classify us as second-class citizens in the UK. We admit, we recognize there are so many social problems now in the UK, but we would not shy away. We face it, not like Hong Kong officials. Shut the door, pretend nothing happened. And selling their China model, becoming more powerful, more confident. No. One day, the inhumane story still exists and happens in here. In our hometown, we never ever shy away just because we want to speak so-called good story of Hong Kong, good story of China. No. We are the person who So please, step out of your comfort zone. Listen to the voice of Hong Kong people. Tell to the people living in the Whitehall, living in the House of the Westminster, living in the City of London, living many of those here. But we're now in South Bank with arts, with culture. Arts and culture show the good value, virtue of human society. We performed. That's not just about the drama. History is drama. People's drama. We're living in historical drama. We're developing the new story. That is art. Arts represent and showcase what is the good value of the future for our society. So we have Raleigh in South Bank, and we believe in the UK. Karl Marx lived here 100 years ago. He never ever could give back to Russia. He never ever could give back to Germany. But when he was in exile in the UK, he buried in here his idealism, his thoughts, affecting the world. Even those dictators who are abusing the power. Again, Hong Kong people living in here, we diaspora, spitting out the thought. Many more philosophers, thinkers, activists, human rights lawyers set up the new vibrant societies in here, mixing with the UK society. We are spreading the new thoughts. We're seeing the future. We believe one day, maybe our next generation will be British citizens, but we never ever forget why we had come here. Our children, our next generation will remember our ancestor, our dad and mom, come here because the tragedies back in hometown, the police brutality, the political persecutions, generation by generation. Why do people come to Hong Kong from mainland China? Why do people come? Our children still need to live in exiles, need to leave the UK for other countries. So, the new duty of us, we speak our Hong Kong story, we also need to protect the UK. That is important. So please, just keep fighting on for Hong Kong democracy. Let me finally say one slogan. 光復香港，
時代革命，
光復香港，
時代革命。
liberate Hong Kong, liberate Hong Kong. Revolution of our time. That is the time for revolution. That is the time for saying stop and no to more aggressive dictatorship in Beijing, in China. That is the time. Remember the date. Remember 3 years ago, we fought for this on the street, and we will continue. Thank you so much.
有其他記者嘅我隔離咧就係有英國紀元，即係大紀元啊，咁啊係比較少
Thank you,
啲嘅。
Simon. And now we finished our first location. We are going to move to our next location to do the silent standing. If you want to join us, please walk with us. And we just going to the London Eye, and it's around 15 minutes walk away. So yeah.
影我呢個牌。
係啊，我哋依家準備去下一個邊嘅，跟住咁我哋就跟住呢一位義工咁啊一齊行。咁啊，大家就都希望啦，咁可以繼續同我哋一齊，即係完成埋呢一個。
你個 channel 講粗口正啊！講多啲粗口先。講多啲粗口先入。
有人走埋嚟同我講話，叫我講多啲粗口喎。唔講粗口有咩好講啫？你對住香港嗰班咪膠人。
係啊，講粗口先入肉㗎嘛。
咁咪係咯，你對住嗰班人唔講粗口係冇用嘅。嗱，我哋而家咧就行去 London Eye， 咁就喺嗰邊都係密集一陣。咁啊，盡量影翻高少少啦，費事影到人樣啦。咁其實今日大概都有超過100人㗎啦，咁但係